So today's scholarly snippets is an overview of DynaMed and UpToDate. And I am Meghan Rito, and I am at PCOM Georgia. So let's dive right in. So really, this workshop is part of the scholarly snippets series aimed to help you advance your research skills and support your scholarly activities. But the point of this particular session is really to understand what DynaMed and UpToDate to offer and make sure that you are using peer-reviewed information for your point of care decisions. And Katie is going to go ahead and give a poll because we wanted to know what type of attendee are you? And so I wanted to know what will be most useful for you guys as we attend or as we continue this session. Great, thanks for filling out this poll. Okay. That is very useful to know. Okay, mostly librarians. Let's get started. So let's go ahead and with the scope of DynaMed versus UpToDate, because I know a lot of colleges will have DynaMed or UpToDate. So make sure that everyone knows what is DynaMed versus what is UpToDate. So DynaMed and UpToDate, as you probably are aware, are neck and neck competitors. DynaMed prides itself on being a clinical reference tool for physicians and other healthcare professionals. Specifically, they look through 200 guideline organizations, 100,000 evidence and guideline summaries. They have a 7-step evidence-based editorial process. And I do have a link to this editorial process on one of my last slides so that if anyone is interested in exactly how they find their data, I can give you that link. They systematically monitor over 3,000 journals, systematic reviews, guideline collections, etc. And like UpToDate, DynaMed has a recently updated section for newly added content. When you're looking at their recommendations for point of care, they have 3 levels of recommendations. The first level is our highest level here is clinical outcomes with minimal bias, all the way down to level 3, where we don't have the same level of evidence, and the evidence are being pulled from case series, case reports, expert opinions, etc. So not as evidence-based. I am going to go ahead and do a demo. And so this is what DynaMed looks like. And I'm going to be doing the exact same searches on DynaMed versus UpToDate so you can see with the same type of searches what sort of results you will get. So first we're going to look, here we go. I'm just going to look for management of hip osteoarthritis. And we have it right here up with a condition. So clicking on that. And it's organized, as you can see, on this left-hand side. So specifically, this topic is osteoarthritis of the hip. I wanted to look at management. So I'm going to go ahead and click on management. And I'm going to say that specifically, I wanted to look at non-steroid drug treatment. So I did that really quickly without showing you, but one of the nice features that both UpToDate and DynaMed have is they have a built-in find on page, which in this case helps pull right straight to the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So as you can see, it's a pretty comprehensive explanation of what you would want to do for say who is affected, incidence, prevalence. Everything is hyperlinked with links to where they're pulling from research. And I did mention that they have, let's see, if you're scrolling down, I think I actually missed it. I went back to, oh, here we go. So recommendations, when you're looking at this, a lot of times they'll either have the link, or if they have a very strong output, they will have, again, we talked about levels 1 through 3. And if you click on these, it will take you straight to the explanation of what the levels of evidence are, and an explanation in case you've forgotten. So that is all really good. I am going to go back to their main page because I want to show you what it looks like when you are looking for a drug. So DynaMed specifically pulls from Micromedics, as you can see up here. And same concept. It's all cataloged or referenced and indexed on the left-hand side. You can skip around. They have a find-in page. All perfectly lovely. I'm just going to show you dosing and administration. The information is all here. And again, it's all hyperlinked with their references. A few other things to show you. This is just a drug list for A to Z. It does have a drug interaction, which again pulls from Micromedics. In this case, I want to show you what the drug interactions look like, because if a patient tells you, hey, I am taking aspirin daily for joint issues, should you also prescribe them warfarin? It's extremely useful to know with these drug interactions. I just want to show you a few other things. They do have a diagnostic tool, which comes in useful. This is, I believe we pay separately for Isabel, but it is part of the product. So I don't think I actually have time to show Isabel, but I did want to show that it has a diagnostic tab right there. We have our calculators, all sorts of calculators, as you can see. One other thing to keep in mind is, say you are working at an ICU, and specifically you see a lot of drug overdose patients. One of the things you can do is you can go ahead and follow, of course, when I'm demonstrating it, it says it's unavailable. But typically what you can do when it's available is you can select a specific topic, and you can even go in more specifically in here and click on this follow tab. And there's 3 options. And one is anytime there's an update, you will get an email. One is anytime there is an update in procedures on how to treat, you'll get an update. And then another is you can just sign up for notifications. So that is an extremely useful feature, so that you don't have to frequently sign up or continually look for the same information to verify, to make sure that you are using the most up-to-date evidence-based treatments. Okay. I also don't have time to show this, but I did want to point out DynaMed Decisions. DynaMed Decisions is a really cool feature that they have added, which allows clinicians to have a decision. So what it does is you take a specific condition, and it'll ask you a series of questions based on an individual's weight and blood pressure, et cetera, et cetera. So their individual risks, comorbidities, values, preferences. And it allows you to build a treatment plan for them based off of their specific conditions. So that's very useful. I believe we do pay additionally for DynaMed Decisions on top of that if you're a librarian and you are interested in this product. But it is extremely useful. I know our clinicians appreciate it. So going to UpToDate in comparison. UpToDate is very similar scope and content. It also is a clinical reference tool for physicians. Shocking. So here this information is pulled from UpToDate in this case and DynaMed in the previous scope and content. So they have 10,000 topics and 25 specialties, and they constantly review 420 journals, but they also look at Medline and Cochrane Library. Similarly to DynaMed, they also have a What's New section. UpToDate also has their specific grading recommendations with strong recommendations, and then they tell you to weak recommendations, and they also tell you how strong is the evidence for this particular recommendation. Okay. So let's go to the demo for this. Sorry, I can't really see all the tabs with this up here, so you're going through all my tabs with me. Okay, so I did say that I wanted to show the exact same search parameters. So I'm going to look up for management of hip osteoarthritis. And here we have a subject and management of hip osteoarthritis. Very similar layout. Clicking on management. Again, they have a built-in find. Brings it right up with our non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And here you can get a look at under their summary and recommendations. You can see this is hyperlinked to the literature, but here is a specific example of their specific grades. And again, just like DynaMed, if you click on it, it gives you an explanation of what that means. We do have algorithms that are all embedded straight in their summary and recommendations. So it's all very useful. And okay, the second thing, I'm going to do a search for warfarin. So drug information for UpToDate is pulled from Lexicomp, which is lovely. I will say one thing I do like about UpToDate is that for the dosing for drugs, it does put it into a nice chart. It looks nice. The information is all there for DynaMed too. It's just not in the chart necessarily. Other things to show you for UpToDate, they too have a what's new section, but perhaps more importantly, they have their practice changing updates, because this is what really matters, is when information has been found and the way you should change your practice and the treatment. This is the important thing at the point of care to make sure you're up to date on. And you can see here that you can go into topic update and it just goes by date. You can also search specifically by topic, make sure that you are constantly looking at it. UpToDate doesn't have a follow, but what they do have is a bookmark. So I can just show you here. I bookmarked management of hip osteoarthritis. And right here in this section, very quickly, you can see the what's new section. So that makes it fairly convenient to keep up to date with specific topics that you might be interested in when you're in the clinics. Or in the case of the librarians are here, that you can recommend that these doctors are using. Okay. Other things to note, topics by specialty. These are always useful to know, that you can go in specifically and are looking into the specialties. I did already show the practice changing updates. That's all lovely. Patient education. This is always useful. This is written, I believe it's at an 8th grade reading level. So, which makes it comprehensive for the grand majority of people reading this. So, and we do have 3 options of languages. We have Arabic, Spanish, and English. So if you were to click on this, and then you would be able to print this out for your patients. Okay. Drug interactions, exactly like DynaMed. UpToDate 2 has our drug information, aspirin. So the exact same search, asks you to analyze it, and we have our recommendation from Lexicomp, complete with our footnotes, which is always lovely. Okay, going back to UpToDate. UpToDate Pathways is the competitor of DynaMed Decisions. Like DynaMed Decisions, it is intended to help you make individual decisions based off of your specific patient. So in this case, you can actually see what this would look like, et cetera, as you continue going. Okay, going back. Okay. One thing that UpToDate does not have built into it is a diagnostic tool. However, it does work with a diagnostic tool called Visual DX, which when you're using Visual DX links straight to UpToDate. So that is nice. But again, you do have to pay individually to have access to Visual DX. Okay. So in 10 minutes for each of them, basically, I showed the basic parameters of how you can use this. What are they good for? Let me go back to my slides though, because I did have more to say. Just things to compare. DynaMed, owned by EBSCO, UpToDate by Wolters Kluwer's. We have our specific individual, we have DynaMed Decisions versus UpToDate Pathways, our diagnostic tool, Isabel versus Visual DX, and where the drug information is being pulled from, Micromedics versus Lexicomp. Both DynaMed and UpToDate both have apps. One thing I really appreciate about the DynaMed app is it has a feature where if you know you're going somewhere very rural and you will not have internet access, you can do a full install of DynaMed and have full access to everything in DynaMed, even without internet access. As you can see here with the main screens, DynaMed versus UpToDate, you do have access to everything that you find on the website. With a really nice feature is that both of them do a voice search. And as you can see on DynaMed, it's to the right of the search box, and UpToDate, it's on the bottom there. So one of the questions I was asked even before is, as a librarian, why do physicians seem to like DynaMed or UpToDate versus more than DynaMed? And I just wanted to, I found 2 studies, and the first was actually published last month actually, and it found that the accuracy of clinical answers is equal in UpToDate versus DynaMed. And they actually theorized that even though physicians prefer UpToDate and have a higher confidence sometimes in their responses, they actually think that it's just because physicians are exposed to UpToDate earlier and they're more comfortable with it because that's what they started learning and they like sticking with what they've already learned. I would actually say that the usability of both is pretty comparable once you start using them. Here's the second study that I found. This one looks like it was published January 2020. And again, it had participants, physicians specifically, look at the resources They both felt that both resources were easy to use, both contained high quality of information, and enabled assessment of the level of evidence. They seem to enjoy UpToDate more, but it would make sense if they're exposed to that earlier. So basically what I've really heard is that if you're UpToDate spends a lot of money on advertisement, so it looks clean is what I've heard basically. Free products and access to DynaMed, that was another question that I was asked in advance. Both DynaMed and UpToDate only have free access to COVID-19 material. And that was started in 2020, right as the pandemic hit. However, DynaMed has actually really great policies that if you're in a resource poor country, they'll give free access to any healthcare professional, which I think is amazing. They also partner with organizations such as American College of Physicians. And so if you're a member of an American College of Physicians, you get free membership to DynaMed. And they do things like that. Unfortunately, in comparison, UpToDate isn't really good for institutions as a whole. They do have a tiered pricing structure for countries outside the United States, but don't give free access. They give discounted rates only up to 19 people, but or if you're a resident student or a physician in training. I didn't go ahead and include tutorials on DynaMed decisions and UpToDate, as well as giving the editorial process of both UpToDate and DynaMed, and I can put that in chat if you guys want. And before I take questions, and I hope there's a lot of questions, I did want to mention that the next workshop is on EndNote on April 20th, and that sounds great. And I know at the end of this, Katie will be putting in a link, but also we'll have a Red Cap survey. So let me go ahead and I'm actually just going to put these in chat. For your reference, if you're interested on these. Okay. Copy of the slides. Sure, I'd be happy to share these slides. I think are we still
normally post them? Yes, later, but I can make sure once we can send out a link to everybody.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
You're welcome, Megan.
And then, oh, Katie has already put in the survey link and the next workshop. As well as saying DynaMed decisions and Isabel are add-ons. Does DynaMed still have the question feedback feature for every page and topic? Going to DynaMed. I think that they do. Yes. I've also seen this in UpToDate. So they actually allow pretty much anyone, although you can see here that it already knows I'm a medical librarian, but when you sign up for your account, it asks you to sign to say what you are, and then some of that is automatically put in, and then allows you to comment on any of these topics as well as question them. So there is that feature in both DynaMed and UpToDate. Okay. Let's share slides. Yes, we will be sharing slides. Does anyone have any questions, want to see anything, have any comments on what you would prefer, DynaMed versus UpToDate? Pricing wise, which is more expensive? Great question. UpToDate. UpToDate is more expensive. DynaMed gives package deals. UpToDate, when librarians asked for package deals, they said no initially, and we pressured them and they said, okay, fine, we'll give you a package deal, and it was the exact same price per person, unfortunately. Librarians in general, from what librarians who I've talked to, we seem to like DynaMed better because they are willing to work with us as an institution, willing to offer us those institutional prices. By far, DynaMed is cheaper. Also, really cool feature about DynaMed is that it allows us to buy access to the product for our alumni, which is really cool. Okay. What do your users say about these two resources preferences? I hear a lot of, hey, we're using UpToDate in the hospital. I want to use UpToDate too. However, those who learn to use DynaMed think it's a great product too. How do you address the but UpToDate is evidence-based to question? One of the things I would actually show them is their editorial process. And let me just actually show you this in comparison. So DynaMed is the one that prides themselves on having this 7-step evidence-based methodology. In comparison, UpToDate doesn't actually say that they're doing this evidence-based. They say they use evidence-based resources. They do pull from Cochrane. But it's not the same language. You can actually see here you have evidence-based methodology complete with describing all of this. From what I've seen, UpToDate prefers just pulls from resources that are themselves evidence-based, but they don't do it themselves. UpToDate determines cost based on number of doctors /DOs /PAs /NPs and residents plus, yes. Easy way to find guidelines in each resource. Most of the guidelines are actually built in. So So here we have, I just went back to osteoarthritis of the hip, and near the bottom, we have our guidelines and resources. Oh no, I have so many tabs. Oops, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button, which is a problem when you have tabs open. Okay. Let me just go to osteoarthritis, at least osteoarthritis here. I believe it's similar here. So society guideline links, recommendations. I believe that most of these are actually their recommendations here. So UpToDate, it's actually built in, and then all of these hyperlinks go back to, or going back to the or guidelines. I'm sorry, I blanked on the word. Do you know if there's any talk about UpToDate offering free access to nurse practitioners and PAs? I have not heard any. That doesn't mean that they aren't, but I will admit I don't have nurse practitioners at PCOM, although we do have PAs and I still haven't heard anything. Free access to DynaMed for alumni. It's not free, but here I can tell you at PCOM pays for our alumni to get access to DynaMed, and it's a fraction of what we pay for our current students. So I think it's a very reasonable price for all of our alumni to continue getting access to DynaMed. At our hospital, they have Lexicon for the drug database, no subscription for Micromedics. How would DynaMed work in our environment? Would we have to subscribe to Micromedics? That is a great question, Laura. I
Someone
don't
else
think you would.
answered this further down the chat, Megan.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
DynaMed includes summary level information for Micromax only. If you want the detailed information, you will need a separate subscription. Thank you, Ying, for adding that, because I will admit I didn't know that offhand. Mostly because we do have a separate subscription to Micromedics. We added lexicon to Isabel. Yeah. Both. The question is DynaMed still updated daily? I remember that was highly advertised, and UpToDate did massive updates every 3 months. Yes, the answer is that DynaMed is still updated daily. When I was looking at them, I was looking for a comparison, and I believe UpToDate was actually saying that they did small updates every day too, but the massive updates, like you were saying, are every 3 months. But the main question is DynaMed still updated daily? Yes, yes they are. Sunny, this is so timely. I just received a newsletter from UpToDate and they had this written in bold lettering. UpToDate publishes every business day. UpToDate experts contribute continuously, monitor more than 425 medical journals, so you can always trust UpToDate is always current. Since March 30th, 2022, 492 updates have been added, including 19 what's new entries. Thank you for adding that, Sunny. Joanne, given that EBSCO DynaMed is a close competitor to Wolters Kluwer UpToDate, does DynaMed have access to Wolters Kluwer clinical content? That's a great question, Joanne. I know that DynaMed pulls from a lot of journals. They go over 3,000 journals. So it could be. I don't know the answer to that. I would have to look into that and get back to you, Joanne. It could also be potentially that EBSCO sticks with EBSCO products, because you're right, they are a close competitor. Any other questions? Due to the frequent updates, the mobile apps update a lot too. So for some, it might be worthwhile to see if there is a way not to auto update. That's a good point. I'll just give it a minute for anyone else who has a question to ask it. For everyone else, thank you so much for attending. I hope this has been useful.